We have thousands of ideas going through our minds every single day, and not every idea can become a successful business. So it's important for you to understand what your sweet spot is, and that is the explanation of sweet spot is something that you are really good at doing, something that drives you and that you're passionate about as well, and something that other people need or want.
Welcome back to Bet on Yourself by Level Up Lab. In the previous episode, we discussed mindset and entrepreneur's mindset, what it takes to become an entrepreneur, and we understood that there are three pieces to it. There's mindset, strategy, and execution. So in this episode, we're going to begin with the strategy part of it. It requires a little bit of work. That's why I have all my books and padai mode ready. So welcome back, Masi. Thank you for last week. It did explain a lot about the way we need to wire our brains to be able to go on consistently and sustain longer. But today we want to go into the sweet spot part, which you mentioned in your book. It talks about how multiple pieces need to come together to find our sweet spot when we are beginning this journey. So first, can you explain to me what sweet spot is and what things put it together?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a part of mindset and strategy coming together, right? So remember how there are three things, but it's mindset, and now from the mindset we're going to strategy, but it's sort of an overlap. So what we're looking for is, again, finding a similar overlap in what is it that is going to make a business a good business. A lot of people have great ideas, they have many different ideas, and often come to me to say, how do we, which idea should I pick? So a lot of it is not really what the idea is. That really doesn't matter, because we have thousands of ideas going through our minds every single day, and not every idea can become a successful business. But what the focus needs to be for every founder is, what can you make a successful business out of? And so it's important for you to understand what your sweet spot is, and that is the explanation of sweet spot is something that you are really good at doing, something that drives you and that you're passionate about as well, and something that other people need or want. So you're trying to find an overlap between these three things to find your sweet spot. Because a business cannot be a business without you being good at it and you having the passion for it. But also it can't be a business if you don't have other people needing it and wanting it and willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So this is what we're going to find a bit of an overlap between to find what our sweet spot is. So if you have multiple ideas, the sweet spot sort of exercise, or going through some of the different pieces of the sweet spot elements, will help you narrow it down to really say, yeah, this is the one that I need to go test and see if this works as a business.
So how will it work in our situation where we've already kind of started something? So
yeah,
we like you mentioned last time in a conversation that was not recorded, that we are basically throwing multiple things on the wall and seeing what sticks. So can that also be one way of finding the sweet spot, or it's better to first list it out in your head?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. So when I started my entrepreneurial journey, the first thing I wanted to build was something that I was really passionate about, right? And the two biggest passions of mine are travel and food. And so for me, it's really, that's what I was really looking forward to doing with my business, was building either a business in travel or in food. And I ended up building both. But the first business was a travel business. And so for me, travel is not about going to different places and just seeing the monuments and taking pictures and coming back. For me, travel is a lot about understanding the local culture through the language, through the food, through the people that are there, and how it all works. And that's what I enjoy about travel. So for me, when I started building the travel business, I was like, okay, cool, you know what? I'm just going to go build something that this sounds really exciting. Like if I can show people how to travel the way I travel and learn more about the culture when they're traveling. And so that's the model I built my business on. Now, what I did was spend days and nights actually pulling a website together, putting marketing together, finding the suppliers, the vendors, all of that, so similar to you, where you've started the business already because you have this great idea and you want to go build something out of it. So that's exactly where I started. And then once I had all this in place, I was like, okay, it has to be perfect before I put it out in the world, right? So having it all put together, and then I went out and I started advertising and I started putting it out there, and I got a few leads. I got people, who were keen and interested in what I was offering. The first one was to Bali, and it was supposed to be a week going to Bali.
I remember signing up for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and then I started speaking to the people who had left their names and numbers for me to call them. And it was very interesting because the more conversations I was having with these people, I realized that they were just looking for another travel agent, right? They were not really looking for anything that was more culturally immersive, the way that I was building it. And I didn't want to be that travel agent they call at 2 a.m. in the morning saying, you know what, my shower is not working here in Bali. Like, that was not my idea of the business I was building, but that's how it was translating out into the world. And very quickly through that process, I realized that that's not what I want to do, right? And so I sat back and reflected on what is it that, really got me to build a travel business. So it was more about the travel and the cultural immersion piece, but I was like, what is it about the travel that I enjoy the most? Sure, I enjoy meeting new people and all of that, but what is my drivers? What are my drivers? Why am I so passionate about travel? What ticks me? And what I sat down and reflected on is I have a value system that's very attached to travel, which is I'm very curious. I'm curious. I love learning new things all the time. I have a thirst for knowledge and hunger for knowledge. Like, I love to read things. I love to, so in the same vein, when I was practically learning things, I was really enjoying that. So it was about variety was another piece. Like, I can't do the same thing over and over again. And travel gave me variety because I could go to different parts of the world and experience different things. So for me, it was really about that whole piece of, the curiosity, the learning, the variety. Those were my drivers. So while the passion was coming out as travel, the drivers of the passion was this stuff. And so it was important it's important to understand it's not just what you're passionate about, but what drives your passion that's important. And this is why it's okay. A lot of founders come to me with, we had this great idea and we've started off, but where to from here?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a very natural process that people take an idea and run with it. But it's, I think, and I speak from experience, but also having coached 600 other founders, like, I understand what really gets people to get up every day and do the thing that they want to do, because it has to be associated with your drivers.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to understand now. I listed out my drivers when I was doing a few exercises in the book, and they are very similar to what you just said. It was so now I'm very passionate about dance. Actually, so I don't know, I can't say that I'm passionate about something because it's not a thing that I'm doing and that I'm passionate about, but what I'm gaining from it. Like, when I dance, sure, I enjoy it, but what I enjoy more is learning a new style, learning new steps, and the challenge part of it, where getting a new step is very difficult because it's very different wires in your brain getting connected to be able to get the step. But the challenge of doing that is what fascinates me when it comes to dance, those kind of things. But it's interesting how while our drivers may be similar, it's turning out into two very different things, like travel and dance, very different. Correct. That depends on the experiences that we've had over the years.
Yeah. And so also thinking about, so this is about your passions that we spoke about, right? And the drivers of your passions. Now think about your expertise. So these are skills then. The skills that you're applying this to, right? So dance is a skill set that you're building based on your drivers of passion, but it's a skill set, right? So on the other hand, what you want to list out is, what are all my skill sets, right? So your drivers are one thing, and then you may have already used these drivers in many ways in your life already. So it's not new. It's nothing that's new. This is very innate to you, which means that you've already done things around these drivers before, which have then translated into some sort of skill sets for you. And so it's understanding, what are my skill sets as well? What am I really good at? Not things that people say that you're good at alone, but also that you identify you're good at. And then if you're not sure what you are good at, because, sometimes we are doing a lot of things. Like, I'm a generalist. I'm good at many things, but I'm only great at a few things, right?
Okay.
So what am I great at? But also what I'm good at is important, because like a triangle like this. Like I often talk about generalists in a bit of a thing, right? Most people are like this,
Okay.
right? And you think of three layers in this triangle. So
Okay.
the bottommost layer is things that you're not so good at. The middle layer is things that you're good at, and the top layer is what you're great at.
Okay.
Right? So that's what most people are. Generalists or specialists, that's how you would classify specialists. Generalists are a bit like a diamond,
Okay.
right? So the what they're good at in the middle band is a lot of
Lot.
things,
Yeah.
right? They're not good at a few things, and they're very good at a few things, like great at a few things, but the good at is a lot of things in middle, which means that you will find in your life that if you think of yourself like a generalist, if you're someone who's good at multiple different things, I think the thing that you want to think about is what are you great at, right? And what are you good at? You could be good at things because life has forced you to do these things. So it's not necessarily you enjoy them all. So then pick from the good at band, pick things that you enjoy doing as well.
Yeah, this reminds me, when I started my journey, I started as a content writer, and I was getting so much work as a content writer, freelance work. I didn't put a single word out. But I just didn't like writing for money. I would write, but for myself, but for money, I just didn't like writing. So, and this was a concept that I read about, where they said that your weakness is not necessarily something that you're bad at. Your weakness could also be something that you're really good at but drains you.
Yes,
So
100%.
looking for something that fuels us,
That
not
fuels you.
drains us in the
Yes.
strength. This may be out of context, but you mentioned the travel business and how it became a logistic related. People were expecting a travel agent more than someone who's here for the experience.
Yes.
So, do you think if you would have created a personal brand for yourself around being a traveler who enjoys experiences, like being a traveler who travels that way, then if they reached out to you, they would have had the impression, oh, this is what I'm going to expect here.
Correct. And that's the point, right? So, one of the things that we don't talk a lot about is the soft skills that a founder must develop. And one of them is being able to create an authority for yourself in
Okay.
the industry that you want to operate in. I was a nobody in the travel industry.
Okay.
Right? I've traveled to 43 countries. I've lived and worked on 6 continents, but nobody really knows that other than my friend circle.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
And because I'm not an avid sort of, social media influencer, if you like, in the space of travel. So I don't really, shout out from the rooftops every second day about, here's where I'm traveling, this is what I'm doing. Sure, I have some pictures, I've got it on my social media pages, and I share it with friends and family, and that's pretty much it. So I didn't create authority for myself in the industry before I went into it, which means that it was also met with a very different expectation by the
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah.
Right? And so I definitely feel in this day and age, it is really important for founders to start thinking about things like these. If they don't come from the industry itself, how are they creating authority in that industry first before they start off on the business? Or even parallelly, as you're building the business, how are you creating authority in the space? How are you creating your brand? How are you creating your own personal brand? But that brand then features or reflects back into your business as well.
Okay.
So-
How is it that one can create a personal brand apart from social media? Like, is there something else that they can do instead of putting out in what they do on social media?
Yeah, I mean, personal brand was never about social media.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? So personal brand existed way before social media
Yeah.
existed. So it's about how do people define you when you're not in the room? That is a personal brand, right? So when you're not in the room, what are people saying about you?
Okay.
How are they associating you in their minds, but also then talking about you to other people that are in the room if a topic ever came up? That is a personal brand. And so to create a personal brand, it's not just social media, but it's also the interpersonal relationships that you have with people. And what do they know you for?
But for example, you said that your friends and family knew that you were a traveler. Like, I
Yes.
signed up because I knew you were a traveler.
Correct.
And you were more. This would be a very different kind of trip, a trip
Yeah.
to Bali through you. But then that doesn't count as a personal brand. No, I mean, if only your friends and family know about it.
It is a personal brand still, right? Like if you didn't know, would you have signed up?
No, but that just reduces the audience, is it?
Correct. So that's my point. Is like, that personal brand was limited to that space,
Yeah.
to my friends and family, because that's where I put it out. Right? I didn't necessarily speak to everybody that I worked with, my colleagues. I was in banking. I was an employee in a bank. So they didn't know anything about my personal life, right? Because I didn't put it out. So personal brand is is the perception that people have about you. And that perception is created by you.
That makes sense. And it makes me think that when I started doing content writing, it was not once did I put up on social media that I am a content writer. I just started because my work in uni was good in terms of writing. People in uni started asking me for help, and then they spread the word. So the word spread, and I just started talking about myself as a content writer. I actually tell this to a lot of people, like even my sister. So they saw me starting to freelance, and they're like, "How do you begin?" I said, "Just start pretending or like talking about yourself as someone, and eventually people will believe you are that person." Like
Fake it till you make
fake
it.
it till you make it. Like when I was redoing my no, I hope my manager does not see this, but when I was redoing my LinkedIn, like I want to transition from what I'm doing. I was very nervous to say this out loud, but transition from what I'm doing to the media field. Go back, actually, I was there in media. I went to project coordination. I want to go back to media. I just changed my LinkedIn and changed the titles of what I am doing. Like content strategist is what I wrote, and I automatically started getting connections from those kind of people saying that, oh, I see you're a podcast host. I see it in your title. Tell me about your journey. Those kind of things.
Yeah.
So definitely we just start talking about ourselves in a way that in the direction that we want to head in. And that happens.
Absolutely. And to your point about before social media or outside of social media, word of mouth is the most powerful social media, right? That existed even before any of these technology platforms existed, right?
Yeah.
That was the actual social network or social media that people leveraged. So word of mouth even today is the most powerful thing, and you will see even as we go through our journey of building the business, even with your customers, word of mouth is the most viral thing that can happen for your business. It's not just the online platforms that we see, like, one in a few million posts go viral on platforms.
Yeah.
But if you're actually creating great value for your customers,
Yeah.
you will go viral by word of mouth. And that's what you want, because word of mouth is all about your quality. Social media can be boosted, you can do paid ads, you can do inorganic stuff. Word of mouth you cannot buy.
What if our product is content? In that case, what do we do?
Yeah, but even so, like the kind of content, the quality of content you're creating, word of mouth is still
It
an
will
important
spread,
piece,
yeah.
right?
Then-
So, to one of the things you were saying before is your production quality is people have appreciated it, and why do people appreciate? They're not writing to you on your social media that, oh, your production quality is good. They're actually telling you in person.
Yeah,
It's word of mouth.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, if that person wanted to actually, somebody came to them and said, you know what, I'm looking for somebody who can do some production work for our podcast or things like that, who will come to mind first? Right? And
okay.
who will they recommend?
Yes.
And so that's the kind of, so yes, you're using social media as a platform because the kind of content you're creating, sits there on that technology. But the word of mouth or the virality of your work doesn't have to be limited to social media platforms.
And it kind of ties back to your audience, and your paying customers could be different. So the
Yes.
paying customers is more word of mouth, and
Sure. But even audience, like if someone watches your podcast and really likes it, they're going to go tell their friends, hey, you should watch this. Or somebody who's built, right? So even users come through word of mouth. So word of mouth, it never underestimate that. Like no matter how much technology develops, the human side of things and human recommendations to each other is never going to stop.
Yeah. People believe that more.
Yes, right? So now you tell me, when you've done a little bit of work around the sweet spot, like you said, you've done the exercise, what do you think are some of the things coming up for you?
So I went back to look for my skills and expertise and strengths. I went back to things that I've done in the past and what worked and what didn't work there. The first one I think I started was a jewelry brand on your suggestion, actually. So I remember you telling me that there's a good audience for this. I'm like, okay, why not? Let's try. And I did. And what people bought the items and there was good sale. But what was standing out was my social media page.
Hmm.
It was very creative content. Now, to be able to sell what I was selling, I had to do a lot of research. I'm like, okay, like in my head, because I come from a media background, that was the only way to sell in my head.
Hmm.
So the quality of content on the social media page, people were liking, and I was enjoying doing that more than actually standing at the stalls and selling. That was one. So I realized that creativity, like making videos maybe, is something that I really enjoy.
Hmm.
And then there was this part where I started dance workshops.
Mhm.
And I thought, okay, dancing is my passion, and workshop was something that was going viral on social media. So I started dance workshops, and there, the process of getting the students and like putting the whole thing out, doing marketing for that, following up, those kind of things did not excite me so much. It was more the teaching part of it that was fun. The making videos part of it, again, that was fun. But another thing that I noticed in these things, in these ventures, was that my ability to create access for myself was pretty good. I was able to, so this was not for getting the access, but I was able to build a network for myself way before this, that I was able to leverage when I wanted to do these things.
Mhm.
So I think my social skills or people skills is something that I can capitalize on. The second is my interest in videos or
Mhm.
in content. And I don't know if this counts, but I realized that when I'm given a task and I don't know how to do the task,
Mhm.
I do it, end up doing it even better.
Mhm.
So now, like, especially in something like starting a venture, now I don't really know how to do this, but I feel like if, since it's something that I don't know, I will go all out to get the resources that I need to put it together and make it as good as I can.
Mhm.
So that is another strength that I think I can use. um yeah, and the others that I noted from my work experience are writing, but I will not count that because I don't like writing. Coordination. I
Mhm.
like putting things together. Oh, this is interesting. Where when I was working for Hindustan Times, and we were creating video
Mhm.
content, panel discussions for Live Mint, which is business Hindustan Times business news website.
Mhm.
Um, I What I enjoyed in that was the putting together part of it, like organizing the whole thing. So I thought that is project management, and that's when I went for a project management degree. But now I realize that that is production.
Mhm.
So basically, putting things together or coordinating some multiple moving parts to make something happen. That the other thing I realize is event organization. I think I'm pretty good with that. And very often throughout my uni journey and school, college, I've been put in a lot of leadership positions. Like I've been, they not very willingly, but I've been put in those places because they thought I could handle teams.
Mhm.
I remember there was a basketball match, a girls' basketball match, and they made me captain, and I didn't know anything about basketball. Like one shot, I could do some layup shot. That's it. They made me captain to manage the team, and I didn't even go on the field. I just stood on the side like, you,
Mhm.
okay, now you will go, now you will go, stop fighting, those kind of things.
Yeah.
So so I think these things put together with my drivers is hunger for knowledge, interest in learning, and challenge mindset, where I love challenges. Those three put together gives me Level Up Lab, where we are creating content.
Mhm.
Now see, here it's only the creating content part of it, because using my expertise and using the drivers, I come up with creating content. Now what kind of content? I think
Mhm.
it depends upon what the customers want, or like what the audience wants, but it also has to match my passion part of it, where it should drive me also. I should be interested in creating that
Mhm.
content. Like for example, the first few, when I was reading the book quite a few months ago, I saw something called customer discovery, and it involved doing a survey. So you do it backwards, so you go do a survey and see what people want or need. We did that survey, and we realized that, and at that time our audience in our head was international students. So we went to unis and asked international students, what do you want? So the things were like basic things, very, mm, not so fun things for me, where they wanted to know about budgeting, about meal planning. So those kind of things I would not like to create too many videos about.
Sure.
So it definitely has to match my interests, but yeah. So that's fair. So I'm stuck at the customer part of it, where I need to figure out what the audience wants. But these two, I think this is what comes out of it. And even sure, Level Up Lab can be production, but I'm also thinking, because events is one thing that I do enjoy doing also. I want events to come out of this too, somehow. So that's where I am at.
Yeah, no, that's good. And this is sort of the process that anybody has to go through, right? First is really identifying what is your passion, what do you love doing, what are the drivers behind that love of doing those things, and then what are some things that you're really good at doing, your skill sets, and what can you practically put out in the world. And once you merge these two, it is usually the part about what does the world need and what are they willing to pay for. Like that is the stuff that is the hardest to figure out, right? Because of obviously you've lived with yourself enough to know a little bit about yourself, and maybe you spend enough time doing some reflection, you can figure those two things out. But it's the what do people want and what are they willing to pay for, so it becomes a business. That is the hardest part, and that is the rest of this series that we're doing will be focused on exactly that bit.
Okay.
Because it's you've understood what you think you can make out of this, you have a little bit of a vision in mind, you tried a few things before, so this is not your first business.
Yeah.
Right. Even though you've tried other things before which maybe failed because of yourself or failed because of the market, doesn't matter. Right now it is you're taking all the learnings from that and coming into this.
Yeah.
So that's the important piece. And so the rest of the series, we will start talking a little bit more about what does the world need? How do you identify that? How do you make sure that you're creating a business? And we spoke about this in one of our previous episodes. How are you creating value and then delivering that value and then also capturing that value for your business?
Yeah.
So that's how a business model is made. And those are the things that we will learn throughout the journey.
Okay. Thank you. So I think this we can do next week, is it?
Yes.
Cool. So thank you for tuning in today. And this is what we discovered today is what a sweet spot is, what aspects put together make the sweet spot. And next week we'll go a little more into the customer discovery and understanding what is it that customers want and what we can provide, seeing that match. So see you next week.